What if the very place you close your eyes each night is quietly working against you? Not with drama, not with danger, but with the slow, almost imperceptible erosion of vitality, of clarity, of the energy that you've worked so hard to build up in your waking hours. We often think of the bedroom as passive, a container for sleep, a backdrop to rest. But what if it's not just a container? What if it's a collaborator, a co-author in how we wake, how we heal, how we age, and even how we hope? Pause for a moment. Let your gaze drift in your mind to your own room. Not to the paint color or the bed sheets, but to the way it feels. To the way it meets you when you're most vulnerable, when your thoughts are raw, when your defenses are down. What lives in that space? What breathes in its corners? What lingers in its silence? Because in classical Feng Shui, and in the quietly enduring wisdom of place, your bedroom is not merely where the body sleeps. It is where the spirit recalibrates, where your relationship with rest, with release, with renewal takes shape. This is not about superstition, not about rituals or rigid rules. This is about reading the signals that space sends and asking without fear or overreaction, am I living in a room that supports me? Or one that slowly siphons away the very things I'm trying to build? In this video, we won't ask you to burn incense or install a new altar. Instead, we'll walk through subtle, grounded principles, ones that help you feel, adjust, and reorient the energetic fingerprint of the space that holds you every night. And if ideas like this stir something inside you, if you've ever felt the quiet pull of a room, the unspoken heaviness of a neglected corner, then this is a conversation worth staying for. Before we begin, if you find value in reflections like these, I invite you gently, sincerely, to like, to share, or to subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. I'm on a journey to reach 1,000 followers, not to chase a number, but to continue creating slow, thoughtful content like this. Content that honors the spaces we live in and the lives we're quietly shaping inside them. Let's begin. 1. The yin-yang of light. Yin, when darkness becomes delay. Light in the bedroom from a Feng Shui perspective is not a technical issue. It is a fundamental matter of energetic alignment. In the cosmology of space, light represents motion, clarity, and presence. It animates, it directs, and it stimulates. And when placed improperly, especially in a zone meant for recovery, it undermines what the room was meant to provide. The bedroom is inherently a yin space. In the 5 elemental classifications, it is closely tied to the water and earth elements. Fluid, supportive, grounding, and quiet. Yin energy invites the mind inward, wraps the body in safety, and reminds the heart it can stop racing. That's why so many restorative activities, sleep, dream work, deep intimacy, solitude, are assigned to this part of the home. In contrast, light, particularly overhead artificial light, is yang. It asserts, exposes, speeds up. It is needed in kitchens, in offices, in entrances. But when yang is too strong in the bedroom, it disturbs the balance. It pushes when softness is required. It opens the eyes before the spirit is ready to rise. Most modern bedrooms are lit without thought to energetic flow. The ceiling fixture is often centrally placed for convenience, emitting cold white LED light that spreads aggressively in every direction. While it might be practical for folding clothes or cleaning the floor, it violates the most essential function of the bedroom, to allow the soul to quiet itself without needing to perform. In this environment, even if the body sleeps, the nervous system remains on edge. The light, even when switched off, leaves an imprint of readiness. The ceiling remembers glare. The pillow absorbs anxiety. One of the core issues is uniformity. Bedrooms designed with only one lighting source leave no room for transition. Transition is a spiritual necessity. It is the bridge between activity and stillness. It is the way the body knows the day is over, that effort can end. Just as the sun does not snap off at night but sets gradually in layers of dusk, your lighting must mirror this descent. Ideally, the bedroom should include at least 3 zones of light: a general ceiling or wall source, a low bedside or table lamp, and a soft auxiliary element such as a salt lamp, candle, or wall sconce with a dimmer. These offer choice, progression, and a subconscious cue. You may begin to let go now. Another overlooked factor is light temperature. Feng Shui classifies color not only by hue, but by energy emission. Blue-white light is fast and sharp. It belongs in a task-oriented environment. Warm amber or soft gold light calms the fire of the mind. It suggests earth, the mothering element. This is why a reading lamp with a warm filament bulb offers more than ambience. It supports the endocrine system, slows cortisol production, and sets the pineal gland toward melatonin, the hormone of sleep. Scientific studies have now caught up with what traditional wisdom taught centuries ago, that light affects brain chemistry, blood pressure, and even immune function. But this isn't just science, it's pattern recognition. A room with bright overhead LEDs that flood the space with colorless light becomes emotionally sterile. It encourages consumption but not digestion, of thought, of emotion, of experience. It says, get something done, not feel what needs to be felt. And over time, that imbalance spills over. Sleep becomes restless, dreams become agitated, morning brings fatigue rather than readiness. One often ignored culprit is the light directly above the bed. From a Feng Shui perspective, this is especially disruptive when it aligns with the head or abdomen. These areas govern the mental and digestive centers of the body. A heavy overhead fixture, particularly with downward-facing bulbs, acts symbolically as pressure. Even if the weight is not physical, the energetic suggestion is one of burden, of being watched, of being under scrutiny. This can manifest subtly. Difficulty falling asleep, recurring anxiety, shallow breath, digestive stagnation, or emotional congestion. People who sleep under such fixtures often report never feeling fully rested, even when clocking 8 hours. The space is technically dark, but spiritually loud. To adjust this without structural changes, consider the principle of redirection. Introduce a canopy of soft fabric to diffuse the downward force. Use wall sconces instead of ceiling lights for primary illumination. Place a rice paper lamp in the corner, facing toward the wall, so that the light bounces rather than confronts. This softens the energy, it signals gentleness. It tells the body you are not here to be productive, you are here to be held. The role of daylight is equally important. A bedroom with no access to natural light during the day becomes overly yin, stagnant, slow, and emotionally dull. Light is needed in measured doses to keep qi circulating. This does not mean full exposure to sunlight, which can be harsh. It means filtered light through sheer curtains or bamboo blinds that lets warmth in without domination. Open your curtains early. Let the first hour of sun remind the room that life continues beyond the pillow. Let the breeze shift the energy around. Let the shadows move. In bedrooms without windows or in densely built urban spaces, natural light may be limited. Here, lighting becomes compensatory. Use mirrors strategically to simulate expansion. Reflect the softest part of the room, never the cluttered desk or the TV. Add plants near lamps, not because they clean the air, but because they regulate qi. A snake plant or pothos near a lamp absorbs tension, disperses artificiality, and invites a feeling of presence. Avoid backlit screens before bed. Phone light, tablet glow, television flicker, these are deceptive yang sources. They are small but potent. They carry information that pulls the mind outward when it should be moving inward. A ritual of putting the phone to bed, placing it in a drawer, turning it face down, covering it with a cloth, acts as a symbolic curtain. It tells your subconscious the world is not ending. It can wait. Lighting is not a binary issue of bright versus dark. It is a spectrum of mood, meaning, and memory. Light becomes ritual when chosen with attention. The flick of a switch is a conversation with space. When you turn on the lamp by your bedside and it bathes the room in calm, golden warmth, it is no longer just light. It becomes care. It becomes architecture for sleep. And perhaps most importantly, remember that your room will remember. The patterns you set become embedded in its walls. A room that ends each day in aggression, bright overhead light, tea blasting, chaotic colors, will develop a temperament, but so will a room that learns to dim, that learns to speak softly, that says, not just with words, but with tone, you are safe to rest now. 2. Air is spirit. The breath of the room. There is a silence in the bedroom that's deeper than quiet. It is the silence of stale air. The kind that doesn't move, doesn't shift, doesn't notice you've woken up. The kind of stillness that is not peaceful, but inert. In Feng Shui, air is more than a utility. It is the spirit medium, the invisible bridge that carries life force into the body and allows energy to speak between objects, walls, and people. A bedroom with no breath, then, is a bedroom with no spirit. It may be beautiful, it may be clean, but it does not live. When we speak of Qi, we often think of flow in visual terms: curved hallways, open doorways, unobstructed walkways. But real Qi is carried on the breath of a space. It is literally suspended in the air molecules, dancing between carbon dioxide and oxygen, between scent and movement. Without fresh air, that flow becomes trapped, like a river dammed upstream. And when that happens, not only the room but the person in it begins to stagnate. Consider how a person breathes when anxious, tight, shallow, restricted in the chest. That's what a room with no ventilation does to the mind. Even if the occupant isn't consciously aware of it, their nervous system reads the message. You are in a closed loop. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. This creates what Feng Shui refers to as collapsed energy, an atmosphere that feels emotionally thick, like you're walking through invisible fog. Over time, that fog doesn't just surround you, it enters you. One of the first signs of poor ventilation is not mechanical, it's psychological. You wake up tired even after a full night of sleep. Your dreams feel cluttered or anxious. You avoid the room during the day, and yet you don't want to leave it at night. There may be a sense of unease you can't name, a reluctance to open the blinds, to let in light. When your space is holding its breath, so are you. And breath, as any meditative tradition knows, is how the body calibrates to truth. Poor air circulation also has direct physical consequences: frequent headaches, dry throat, sinus congestion, eye strain, brain fog. For some, it manifests as low-level irritability or emotional numbness. They don't connect it to the air. They blame stress, work, diet. But sometimes it's the air, the stale, recirculated, unmoving air in the room where they spend 8 unconscious hours each night. Feng Shui calls this decayed qi, a kind of ghost of past breath, hanging in the space long after it's been exhaled. One of the most overlooked causes of this energetic heaviness is the blocked window. Perhaps it's a design choice. The bed is centered and the window is behind the headboard. Or maybe it's covered for privacy with blackout curtains never pulled back. Or worse, the window is there, but sealed, painted shut decades ago, or too heavy to lift. In any case, the message is the same. I do not wish to interact with the world. And while this may feel protective, it slowly suffocates the ability to renew. Air is not just ventilation, it is communication. It is how nature speaks to the room, how seasons introduce themselves to the body. A breeze in spring tells the nervous system that growth is coming. The dry sharpness of autumn air cues reflection. The heaviness of summer humidity slows the breath and says, conserve. When these signals are blocked, we live in artificial rhythm, one disconnected from the very forces we claim to respect. The solution is not complicated, but it must be consistent. First, open the window, even for 5 minutes a day. It doesn't matter if it's cold or humid or loud. Let the room remember the outside, let the wind re-enter. Even a narrow crack allows qi to pass through and say, this space belongs to life. If the room has no windows or the air outside is unfit, then internal movement becomes essential. A ceiling fan on low speed, a wall-mounted circulator, a small tabletop diffuser, not just for aroma, but for movement. Still air is dead air. Movement, even gentle, creates whisper trails of intention. Plants are another remedy, not because they produce oxygen, though they do, but because they mediate between the still and the alive. The snake plant, peace lily, and pothos are especially potent in bedrooms. They hold water, They root into soil, but they interact with air. Their leaves respond to humidity. They shift overnight. They know when you sleep. And when placed near a window or beside a bed, they absorb some of the stagnant charge that collects during the night. More than decor, they are translators of breath. Avoid artificial air fresheners. Plug-ins, sprays, synthetic candles. They don't clean the air. They perfume it. They mask the message but don't change the medium. Scent is powerful, but it should come from something real. An essential oil, a bundle of dried herbs, a cedar chip placed discreetly near the window. These tell the body something alive has been here. They reintroduce spirit. A story comes to mind. A retired literature professor in Kyoto who could never sleep more than 2 hours at a time. He tried acupuncture, sleeping pills, even relocating his bed. Nothing helped. Then, on the advice of a friend, he began opening his window at night. Just a crack, enough to hear the rustling bamboo outside, enough to let the damp morning air settle on his pillow. Within weeks, his sleep deepened, his dreams softened. He said it felt like the house stopped holding its breath. That is the power of air. It does not fix. It does not heal. It reopens. And when your room reopens to the sky, so does your body, so does your mind. In Feng Shui, the breadth of a space is its most honest indicator. Not its size, not its furniture, but whether it allows life to pass through. If you feel like your life has stalled, if your mornings begin with exhaustion, if your bedroom feels like a museum rather than a refuge, don't redecorate yet. Open the window, clear the vents, touch the curtains, watch how the air moves, and ask without words, do I want to breathe here? Because until the answer is yes, the room cannot fully support you. 3. Old things, heavy stories. The mattress and pillow and things in our homes speak loudly. A flickering light, a leaking faucet, a door that won't close. But other things, arguably the most important, speak in silence. They do not call attention to themselves, and yet they are where we return night after night. The bed, the pillow, the mattress we lie on. In Feng Shui, this is not just furniture. It is the symbolic ground on which we surrender our energy 1/3 of every day. And yet, most people never ask, what is the bed quietly holding? We talk about rest as something we earn. We say things like, I need to catch up on sleep, or I want to recharge. But what do we rest upon? Most mattresses in modern households are old, sometimes a decade old, sometimes more. They have supported us through illnesses, arguments, late-night worries, broken hearts, and long winters. And like any object that witnesses human intensity, they absorb. They become saturated, not just with body heat and skin cells, but with energetic memory. There is a term in energy work called residual imprinting. It means that objects repeatedly exposed to emotional experiences start to hold a version of those experiences. In Feng Shui, this applies acutely to where we sleep. An old mattress that supported you during grief, depression, or long periods of confusion, if never cleansed, replaced, or renewed, may hold a subtle echo of those emotional seasons. You may have grown since then, but the bed may still be whispering to your nervous system, remember how heavy it was? Now, this is not about superstition. This is about structure. A mattress, over time, not only degrades physically, it begins to contour to the past. It dips where your worries settled. It retains heat in the places you tossed and turned. And while you may no longer consciously recall the nights you wept into that pillow or stared at the ceiling with an unspoken question on your chest, the structure beneath you does. And structure, in both form and energy, informs how deeply we let go. Think about it. You can't truly release tension on a surface that's holding it. You can't sleep into softness if the mattress is stiff with years of stress. You can't wake up renewed if your pillow is the same one that supported your head through every anxious thought since the beginning of your marriage, or your bomb, or the pandemic. This is why in classical Feng Shui, the bed is not just a place of rest. It is a place of energetic reset. And if that reset is built on old, saturated material, the body stays in conversation with what should have been released. This is not a call to recklessly throw everything away. We understand mattresses are expensive, Pillows, though less so, still carry weight in choice and cost. But awareness comes before action, and sometimes awareness alone begins to soften the grip of past imprinting. Start by asking yourself, without blame or judgment, how long have I had this mattress, this pillow? What seasons of my life has it seen me through? What was I emotionally carrying the last time I changed it? If you've never asked those questions, perhaps now is the time. In Buddhist imagery, the ground represents not just physical support, but karmic foundation. We cannot build upward unless the base is worthy of bearing new weight. The same is true of our sleeping foundation. If your bed is the ground on which you seek healing, it must not be burdened with old injury. So what can you do? First, air your mattress. Not once a year, but regularly. If weather allows, open the window and let sunlight hit it. Sunlight in Feng Shui is the great purifier. It is yang energy, active, warming, dispelling. It dries moisture, but more than that, it reintroduces life force to surfaces that have held too much stillness. Strip your bed, let it breathe. Do not make the bed first thing in the morning. Let the energy of your sleep dissipate before you smooth the sheets. Second, flip or rotate the mattress at least once every season. Not only does this preserve its physical integrity, it shifts the energetic story. You are no longer sleeping in the same grooves. You are not repeating the same posture. Change the orientation, even slightly, and your body reads the message, I am open to new positioning. This alone can begin to change how you enter sleep. Third, replace pillows often, much more often than most people do. Every 18-24 months is ideal, though even annually is not excessive. Your head, your dreams, your thoughts all rest here. Would you drink from the same water glass every day for 5 years without cleaning it? Then why should your mind sleep against material that hasn't been renewed in half a decade? Choose pillows made of materials that breathe: natural latex, organic cotton, bamboo fiber. Avoid synthetic foams that trap moisture and hold heat. The pillow should feel like a cloud, not a sponge. If you cannot replace your mattress right now, invest in a breathable, natural topper. Wool or organic cotton layers can soften the field. And most importantly, set the intention every time you make your bed. Not a grand mantra, just a quiet sentence. This space is safe. This space releases. You'd be amazed how much energy shifts when the act of making a bed becomes a moment of reverence. I once visited the home of a woman in her 70s, a widow. She told me she hadn't slept through the night in over 6 years. Nothing helped. Melatonin, herbal teas, evening walks. I looked at her bed. The mattress was 18 years old. The pillow still had the indentation of her late husband's head. She cried when we talked about replacing that, not because she couldn't afford it, but because she didn't want to let go of the last physical memory. I understood, but I asked her gently, do you want to sleep with the pillows or rest into the future? She replaced the pillow first, then the mattress. And for the first time in years, she began to dream again. Dreams come not just from the mind, they rise from the body. And if the body is burdened by what it lies on, the mind cannot stretch into vision. If we want to change our lives, we must begin where we surrender every day, on the ground of our becoming. The mattress, the pillow, the breath we forget we are taking. Let your bed be a teacher. Let your pillow be honest. Let your mattress reflect not the heaviness of where you've been, but the spaciousness of where you are ready to go. Overstimulated stillness, the clash of electronics. There's a paradox we rarely question. Why does the space designed for rest often leave us exhausted? Why do we enter our bedrooms each night seeking peace and leave each morning with a tension we didn't carry to bed? The answer, more often than we admit, has nothing to do with our effort or even our sleep posture, and everything to do with a silent overstimulation we've normalized. The quiet buzz of electronics, the soft glow that never fully turns off, the invisible flicker of attention hijacked night after night by screens we've grown too familiar with. In classical Feng Shui, the bedroom is understood as a yin sanctuary, quiet, restorative, deeply internal. It is meant to be a space that gathers you back to yourself, a place where the breath slows, the blood softens, and the mind returns to its center. But in modern life, we've invited yang noise, active, mental, visual, right into the space that once helped us let go. And this clash is not symbolic. It's physiological. It's neurological. It's energetic. Let's begin with what's obvious. The blue light from phones and televisions doesn't just stimulate your eyes. It tells your pineal gland, the part of your brain that regulates sleep hormones, that the sun hasn't set. Your body stops producing melatonin. Your nervous system stays alert. But you think you're relaxing because you're horizontal, scrolling in bed. In truth, your body is still in performance mode, still digesting headlines, still bracing for input. There is no spaciousness for repair. Now add electromagnetic fields, subtle currents emitted by every plugged-in device, from alarm clocks to chargers to Wi-Fi routers. The human body has its own electric rhythm. The heart runs on bioelectrical impulse. The brain fires via synapses. Constant EMF exposure doesn't crash these systems, it simply frays their precision. Like a violin tuned in a room full of static, you still hear the music, but it's never quite clean. You wake up groggy not because you are lazy or undisciplined, but because your body never had a chance to rest without interference. And beyond the biology, there's narrative overstimulation. Think about this. What do you feed your mind in the last 10 minutes before sleep? A text thread, a news app, a Netflix cliffhanger? In Feng Shui, what enters the space lingers. It lingers in qi, in thought, in subtle memory. So when your final thought before sleep is urgency, stimulation, comparison, or tragedy, what tone do you think your dreams carry? What energy does your body calibrate to overnight? This is not a rejection of technology. It's a re-invitation to boundaries. It's the reminder that the bedroom, like any sacred space, requires a perimeter, a buffer, a signal to your body that this room is not another node in the network, but a pause point, a still island in the digital sea. So how do we restore that boundary? Start with physical separation. Move your phone charger out of the bedroom, not to the other side of the bed, out, into the hallway, into the kitchen, into a drawer if needed. Let your bedroom become a zone where no notifications arrive, no alerts pulse, no invisible signals fill the air. You'll feel the difference within days. Sleep deepens, breath slows, thought unwinds earlier, and importantly, waking up becomes less jarring. Second, rethink your lighting. Replace cold, harsh LEDs with warm-toned amber bulbs. Consider Himalayan salt lamps, beeswax candles, or dimmable sconces. These aren't just aesthetic upgrades. They shift your energetic climate. Warm light mimics sunset. It tells your body it's safe now. We're entering rest, and that soft cue changes everything. You're not shocking your system, you're guiding it home. Third, reclaim silence. Not the silence of passive absence, but intentional quiet. Turn off the television, stop falling asleep to background noise. Allow the room to hum with its own calm. Silence is not emptiness, it's resonance. It allows your own rhythm to emerge. In its presence, you begin to hear not the world, but yourself, your inner pulse, your unfinished thought, your undigested emotion. And in that recognition, true rest begins. I once met a couple who had, for nearly 10 years, fallen asleep to the glow of late-night television. Not for entertainment, they claimed, but for comfort. When they finally agreed to try 2 weeks without it, just 2, they reported something astonishing. The wife began remembering her dreams for the first time in years. The husband stopped clenching his jaw in sleep, and both began waking up 10 minutes before their alarm. Not because they had to, but because their bodies felt done resting. Their room hadn't changed much. Same mattress, same paint, same daily routine. The only shift? A reclaimed perimeter, a deliberate silence, a choice to let the room be what it was meant to be, a chamber for return. In traditional temples, no matter how humble, there is always a quiet zone, a space where noise is discouraged, where devices do not enter, where energy resets simply by not being interrupted. Your bedroom deserves the same respect. You deserve the same sanctuary. Remember, Stimulation is not evil. Technology is not the villain. But the body, like the spirit, thrives in rhythm. And rhythm requires pause, breath, stillness. If your bedroom is full of noise, seen or unseen, you are not sleeping in rhythm. You are surviving the night, not resting into it. Let this section serve not as a demand, but as a soft mirror. Ask yourself, what lives on your nightstand? What glows after dark in your sanctuary? What voices enter your space after your door closes? And who are you becoming under their hum? To restore the bedroom is not to reject the world. It is to remember that we are more than receptors of content. We are fields of energy. And like all living fields, we require rest, not just in time, but in space. 5. Mold and memory. How walls whisper illness. We often imagine danger as loud, a shattered plate, a storm outside, a sudden argument. But in the built environment, what threatens us most is rarely noisy. It's quiet. It waits. It embeds itself into corners, behind drywall, under furniture we stopped moving long ago. In the study of Feng Shui and environmental energy, mold is not just an eyesore or health hazard. It is the physical residue of stagnation. It's what happens when movement is denied for too long. Energetically speaking, it is the architectural equivalent of unspoken grief. Mold thrives in damp, forgotten places. Bathrooms with poor ventilation, kitchens with leaky pipes, bedrooms where air never moves. These areas are not just physically vulnerable, they're symbolically significant. Water in the 5-element system of Feng Shui represents memory, flow, intuition, and hidden emotion. It's associated with the kidneys in Chinese medicine, which govern fear and the capacity to rest deeply. When water can't flow, it pools. When it pools too long, it decays. Mold is decay's quiet signature. Now imagine living in a space where that symbolism is active without your awareness. A bedroom with damp walls, a closet with a musty smell, a corner that feels heavier than the rest of the room. Most people assume this heaviness is physical, and to some extent it is. But more often it's energetic. It is the subconscious reading of emotional memory embedded in structure. Mold becomes an index of what hasn't moved inside us. In traditional Vietnamese homes, especially in older towns like Hoi An or Hue, it's not uncommon for families to close off a room after someone dies. The room is left untouched for years, sometimes decades. And while the intention may be respect, the result is often rot. As paint peels and air thickens, those rooms become metaphors for the grief that lingers, unspoken, unreleased. Feng Shui practitioners know this instinctively. A home that doesn't circulate energy is a home that begins to digest itself. From a practical standpoint, mold is a health risk. Studies in environmental medicine link prolonged exposure to indoor mold with respiratory issues, headaches, cognitive fatigue, and even depression. But that science is simply echoing what ancient systems already understood through metaphor. If breath is life, then air is spirit. And mold, by definition, compromises breath. Poor indoor air quality isn't always about pollutants. Sometimes it's about density, emotional density, a wall that's never seen light, a room that's never been aired out, a bed pushed against an external wall with chronic condensation. Mold forms not just from moisture, but from lack of attention. In Feng Shui, attention is qi. Wherever attention goes, energy circulates. Wherever neglect settles, stagnation accumulates. Mold, then, is not an isolated problem. It is systemic. Consider the way we speak about emotion. That conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. This room feels heavy. I need to clear the air. These aren't random phrases. They are linguistic fingerprints of embodied wisdom. Our nervous systems respond to space. We may not always perceive mold visually or olfactorily, but we often feel its presence somatically. Sluggishness, irritability, mental fog. In environments with high energetic density, our instincts dampen. Our resilience shrinks. There is a deep, often overlooked connection between environment and self-trust. When your room is full of clutter or invisible decay, it subtly teaches your body that you aren't safe. That restoration is incomplete. That you're living in a space that stores what you are not ready to face. Mold, then, is not just environmental, it is relational. it changes your relationship to rest, to decision-making, to the quiet voice that tells you when something isn't quite right. And yet, the remedy is not mystical, it's physical. You don't need incense or chanting. You need airflow, sunlight, the courage to clean. Start with your walls, particularly behind beds, wardrobes, and in corners. Are they dry? Do they feel warm to the touch? If not, you may already be dealing with subtle moisture accumulation. A moisture meter can confirm it, but your own body often already knows. If a space makes you breathe shallower, if you always avoid that one side of the room, there's a message in that. Open windows daily, even 5 minutes in the morning shifts qi dramatically. If your climate makes that difficult, use fans, not just for comfort, but to mimic natural current. Remember, Feng Shui is not about superstition. It's about aligning with the natural laws of movement. Mold is a symptom of immobility. Airflow is medicine. Herbal remedies have long played a quiet but powerful role in energetic cleaning. Dried orange peels in bowls, lavender in sachets, lemongrass sticks tied with cotton thread. These are not aesthetics. They are olfactory pathways that subtly purify mood and shift subconscious patterning. In Feng Shui, scent is not just smell, it's memory activation. It reminds the room and the body that it's alive. In Vietnamese culture, salt water is still used to clean the home after conflict or sickness. Not because salt has magical properties, but because it binds and neutralizes what is stale. Wipe your baseboards with warm salt water once a season. Pay particular attention to wall edges, bed corners, and the base of bookshelves. Dust is information. What collects over time reveals where attention is missing. Now consider this. When was the last time you moved your bed? Not just made it, but moved it, cleaned beneath it, aired out the mattress. The bedroom is where we spend 1/3 of our lives, lying down, dreaming, processing. If that space holds rot, so do we. Replace old pillows when they begin to feel heavy. Choose materials that breathe, cotton, bamboo, or natural latex. Foam traps heat, mold thrives in heat. Breathe with your space. And above all, listen. Mold may form silently, but it doesn't hide from presence. If a room feels stagnant, don't rush to decorate. First, restore breath. Then observe what it becomes. There's a story told among older practitioners in Hanoi about a tailor whose shop never succeeded despite his skill. He cleaned regularly, greeted customers warmly, but something always felt off. A Feng Shui elder visited and said nothing at first. Then gently he pointed to the back wall, damp, discolored, forgotten. This, he said, is where your fear lives. It turned out an old pipe had been leaking. The wall had soaked through, quietly over years. They replaced the drywall, let the sun in, painted the room pale yellow. The tailor reported something strange. He began taking more risks. He raised his prices. People paid them. He wasn't richer overnight, but his space stopped whispering doubt. It began humming stability. The lesson isn't that mold brings misfortune. It's that unattended stagnation becomes habit, and habits shape futures. So walk through your space, not as a designer, not as a critic, but as someone curious about breath. Are your walls exhaling? Is your sleep zone circulating? What corners have you stopped noticing? These aren't cosmetic questions. They're foundational. In Feng Shui, the goal is not perfection, it's relationship. When we relate to our environment with care, it reflects that care back, slowly, quietly, but unfailingly. Toxic ambience. What scent shouldn't mask scent more than sight or sound is the sense that slips past our conscious defenses. It doesn't ask for permission. It enters, it embeds. It rewires memory and mood, often without us realizing why we suddenly feel heavy, alert, nostalgic, or uneasy. And in a space like the bedroom, a space where we ask to rest, to forget, to soften, scent becomes not just decoration, but declaration. Walk into a room where someone has just lit a lavender candle or plugged in a synthetic diffuser. You might feel a sense of calm, or you might feel your head tighten. You might think, it smells good. But that thought alone is already a sign of interference. True ambient scent in an energetically clear space doesn't announce itself. It moves like breath. You don't notice it. You feel with it. In classical Feng Shui, scent corresponds to the element of air and, symbolically, to the invisible flow of qi, the breath of a room. But just as breathing can be shallow or deep, pure or polluted, ambient scent can either support or confuse our internal systems. When the goal is stillness, clarity, or restoration, the scent should serve the body's parasympathetic nervous system, not override it. The modern market, however, has misunderstood this principle entirely. Consider the average candle sold in department stores. Paraffin-based, colored with artificial dye, infused with synthetic fragrance. You light it after work, hoping it will set the mood, calm your nerves, help you feel something softer. But what it often does, without your knowledge, is disrupt your endocrine system. That system governs your hormones, your sleep cycles, your stress levels. In Feng Shui terms, it's the human body's qi regulator. And when you introduce a chemical fog into the very place you rely on for recalibration, you create contradiction. It's like asking the body to rest while quietly playing loud music just beyond the threshold of hearing. There is a reason ancient homes used herbs, not perfume. A reason why in traditional Vietnamese medicine, people boiled lemongrass or placed orange peels on clay dishes instead of reaching for diffusers with mysterious contents. Real scent, natural scent, dissipates. It doesn't linger. It doesn't cling to your pillow for days. It breathes in and out like a visitor, not a squatter. The moment your bedroom smells more like a product than a person, it has stopped being a home and started being a showroom. And showrooms, by definition, are not designed for living. We must ask a better question. What are we masking and why? Scent should never be used to cover decay. That includes not just physical mold or stale air, but emotional residue. A room that smells nice but never feels safe is often one that's perfumed over pain, a candle over conflict, a spray over stagnation. But qi isn't fooled. You can't spray away energetic dissonance. You can only address it. In Feng Shui, every element must be true. A wooden table must reflect stability, a light source must reflect clarity, and a scent must reflect the season, the state of the room, the needs of the body. If you are sitting and burning an energizing citrus blend may feel like armor, but it may also widen the gap between your internal state and your external environment, creating static. That static doesn't bring change, it just increases distance. Instead, consider scent as signal, not to the world, but to your own nervous system. A bowl of crushed mint beside the bed after a long day, a strip of tangerine peel warmed by sunlight near the window, a bit of cinnamon bark in a small linen sachet tucked beneath your pillow. These are not luxuries. They are quiet invitations. Invitations to exhale, invitations to memory. Mint clears the breath, citrus clarifies emotion. Lemongrass grounds. These aren't placebo effects. They are embedded wisdoms that generations of households in Southeast Asia, in India, in rural parts of China and Japan, have known without needing marketing to remind them. They used what they had because what they had was enough. In fact, one of the most grounding rituals you can perform is steaming lemongrass in a bowl of hot water and placing it in your room for 15 minutes before sleep. Not for the scent itself, but for the steam, the movement, the memory it carries. In Feng Shui, movement is always more powerful than fragrance. A scent that does not move becomes stagnation. A scent that moves becomes signal. Which brings us to the deeper insight. A room should not smell like lavender or clean linen. A room should smell like itself. That is, a room should breathe as its own living entity. When you enter your bedroom, the scent should remind you of rest, not of branding. It should evoke stillness, not effort. And it should never force itself upon you. True energetic scent works the way breath does, naturally, cyclically, responsively. Of course, not everyone can eliminate all synthetic sources overnight. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Begin with one shift. Remove plugins or air fresheners that operate constantly. Replace one commercial candle with a beeswax one infused with real essential oil. No more than 1-2 ingredients. Burn it for 15 minutes, then let the space return to neutral. This reset is more potent than hours of artificial calm. If you live in a city or must be in a high-rise apartment, remember that you can still simulate nature. Open windows where possible. Use a fan to create gentle circulation. Hang a bunch of dried eucalyptus or bay leaves in a corner, not for show, but for support. In Feng Shui, placement matters, but what matters more is attention. The attention you bring to scent becomes part of the scent itself. Scent is memory. Memory is mood. Mood is qi. And qi is the architecture of everything else. If you grew up in a household where your grandmother placed pomelo peel on the altar, or your uncle crushed lime leaf into his tea, you already know this. If you didn't, that wisdom is still available to you. It is not cultural exclusivity, it is sensory literacy. And sensory literacy is something we've collectively forgotten how to read. So before you light the next candle, pause. Ask, is this scent helping my body return? Or is it pushing me to perform a version of calm I don't feel? If your room needs freshness, clean it. If it needs clarity, move it. If it needs memory, scent it with something real, and then let it be. Let the room breathe. You'll know it's working when you stop noticing it. When you walk in and your shoulders lower, not because of how it smells, but because of what it stops shouting. Because in the end, a bedroom should not whisper anxiety beneath the scent of vanilla. It should breathe with you, quietly, faithfully, with every step you take toward rest. 7. Geometry of the bed, where you sleep, shapes how you wake. Sleep is often described as a surrender, but in truth, it is a return to something that holds us, without expectation, without noise. And like any return, the path matters. In Feng Shui, that path is defined by geometry, not just physical geometry, but spatial narrative. How energy enters, how it's invited to stay, and how we prepare the body to dissolve into stillness. The bed is not just a place to lie down. It's a compass, a barometer, a witness. And yet, so often it is placed as if it were just another object, pushed into corners, boxed beneath beams, or left floating in rooms with no anchoring. We do this because we've learned to prioritize decor, space-saving, or visual symmetry over what really matters: emotional geometry, energetic alignment. Consider first the bed placed directly under a ceiling beam. It may not seem like much. After all, the beam is architectural. It holds weight. But in the symbolic logic of Feng Shui, it also holds pressure. And when something heavy hovers directly above the body, especially above the head or chest, it introduces a silent tension, a weight the body feels even in sleep. You may not dream of collapse, but you may find yourself waking in fragments, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, thoughts unresolved. Sleep becomes functional, not restorative. You wake, but you don't arrive. This is not superstition, it is somatic geometry. The body reads space before the mind interprets it. Then there's the bed placed directly in line with the door, the so-called coffin position in classical Feng Shui texts. Not because it's cursed, but because it leaves you vulnerable. Doors are mouths of qi. They invite, they deliver, they reveal. And when your body is directly exposed to that current, without buffer, without control, you are, even in sleep, kept slightly alert. You may fall asleep, yes, but a part of you remains watchful. The body learns that the very path meant for entry might also bring interruption. Think about how animals sleep in nature, back to a wall, with vision of the exit, never in the direct line of attack. Our instincts are no less primal. They simply speak more quietly. Now imagine a bed opposite a mirror. You may think it's decorative, that it makes the room feel bigger. But in the quiet hours of night, a mirror becomes something else entirely. A space that reflects light, movement, and sometimes distraction. Mirrors don't sleep, they echo. And when they face the bed, they echo your restlessness back at you. There are stories, ancient and modern, of people waking at 3 a.m. in rooms with mirrored closets, wondering why they feel unsettled, why their dreams seem louder, more vivid, more fractured. It's not the mirror itself, it's the duplication of presence, the energetic echo that confuses boundaries between self and reflection, between rest and performance. Even if you consciously know the mirror is harmless, your subconscious is not concerned with logic. It is concerned with signals, and the signal of a mirror is be seen. Rest asks the opposite. And then there is the bed placed against a shared bathroom wall. Perhaps the pipes run behind the headboard. Or perhaps the toilet sits on the other side of the wall. You may not hear it, but water remembers. And in Feng Shui, water is emotion. It's flow. But when that flow is hidden, used for waste or stagnant, as it often is in bathrooms, it carries a very different tone. It becomes emotional residue. And placing your sleep space against that residue introduces a quiet dissonance. The mind cannot settle fully when its resting place vibrates with unspoken flushes and unseen drains. These placements, beams, mirrors, doors, toilets, they are not superstitions to fear. They are patterns to observe, invitations to redesign not just space, but support. So what do? We start, as always, with anchoring. Back your bed against a solid wall, not a window, not a gap, but something firm, something that says, you are held. This is the first gesture of support. A clear, unmoving back allows the body to face the world with less tension. It mimics the posture of a tree, rooted, upright, calmly alert. Then allow your bed to see the door, but not align with it. Diagonal is ideal, so that the eyes, when open, register access, not threat, so that the body knows it can respond but doesn't have to. Avoid overhead heaviness. No hanging shelves above the pillow. No thick art pieces directly over the heart. Let the space above your head breathe. This is where thought lives, where the mind, in sleep, untangles the day. Heavy objects introduce narrative pressure, even if they never fall. If your only available placement violates one of these principles, do not panic. Energy can be redirected. A beam above can be softened with fabric. A mirror can be covered at night. A door can be buffered with a soft screen or a tall plant. A toilet wall can be cleared, buffered with wood panels, or spiritually shielded with a red strip of fabric. The key is not perfection. The key is acknowledgement. Space becomes sacred in the moment you stop ignoring it. You might ask, well, does this really make a difference? Isn't this just detail? But here's the truth. The way you sleep is the way you live. The position of your rest shapes the rhythm of your effort. If you sleep in fear, you wake in defense. If you sleep exposed, you wake disoriented. If you sleep cradled, you wake clearer. And perhaps most importantly, when you place your bed with awareness, you begin to shape not just your sleep, but your self-trust. There's a story I once heard, not in a Feng Shui book, but from a nurse, about a man who moved into a new apartment after a divorce. He had little furniture, so he placed his mattress directly on the floor in the center of the room facing the door. He thought it was temporary, but months passed. He couldn't sleep. He said the room felt off. He kept waking, heart pounding, certain someone had entered. He tried melatonin, music, even new sheets. Nothing helped. It wasn't until a friend visited and moved the mattress against the far wall, beneath a simple print, angled away from the door, that he began to rest again. He said it wasn't the sleep that changed, it was the feeling of arrival. That, in the end, is what geometry and Feng Shui is about. Not aesthetics, but arrival. So tonight, before you sleep, walk around your room, observe where your bed sits, not just physically, but symbolically. Is it floating? Is it hiding? Is it held? Yourself. Does this placement support who I am now, or who I used to be? Because when we change the way we lie down, we change the way we stand up. 8. Symbolic traps, colors, clutter, and corners. Some burdens are visible, others are quieter. And then there are those that we never see more directly, but feel every time we step into a room. A heavy sigh, a pause we can't explain, a sudden fatigue that makes no medical sense. In Feng Shui, these aren't dismissed as mood swings. They're traced, gently, carefully, to the cues that surround us, especially in the bedroom, especially in the places we believe are benign. Color, clutter, and corners. They sound like decor decisions. But in truth, they are energetic signals. And when misaligned, they become what I've come to call symbolic traps. They don't bite, they don't shout, but they whisper. They speak to your subconscious. And over time, they influence the way you hold yourself, in sleep, in stillness, in daily effort. Let's begin with color, specifically the walls around your bed. Many people gravitate toward dark hues for bedrooms. Navy, charcoal, deep maroon. These tones feel rich, sophisticated, cocoon-like. But there's a difference between cozy and compressed. And when color becomes too dense, too absorptive, it begins to steal the bounce from your spirit. You may not notice it at first, but a room painted in shadow begins to teach your body that rest is not just pause, but hiding. It begins to speak the language of withdrawal, not renewal. There's a reason traditional spaces of healing, clinics, temples, meditation halls, favor soft, natural, light-reflecting colors. Not because they are trendy, but because they reflect qi. They circulate emotion. Pale creams, warm taupes, gentle greens, muted golds. These are not aesthetic preferences. They are breathable frequencies. They allow the room to respond to you instead of absorbing you. Color holds story. It holds vibration. A bedroom should feel like exhale, like the first soft light before sunrise, not like the bottom of a well. Then there is clutter, especially what lives beneath the bed. In Feng Shui, underbed space is not just dead air, it's energetic terrain. It either supports your rest or it complicates it. When you store things under the bed, boxes of tax papers, old photo albums, unused shoes, out-of-season clothes, you are inviting narratives into your sleep. You are literally lying above unresolved stories. Some people say, it's organized, I vacuumed, I need the space. And yes, sometimes storage is a necessity. But the question is not about neatness, it's about meaning. Imagine lying down for rest, but beneath you are the remnants of work, memory, past identities, or even emotional residue. You may fall asleep, but your energy remains entangled. Your dreams become cluttered. Your ability to restore narrows. The best sleep, the kind that doesn't just close your eyes, but reopens your life, happens when the space beneath you is clear, empty, unburdened. If you must store, choose soft items, bedding, natural fiber linens, seasonal blankets, not paperwork, electronics, or mementos. Think of it like this. The bed is a boat, and everything beneath it is ballast. You don't want to sleep atop anchors. And then there are the corners, so often overlooked, so often neglected. In the language of Feng Shui, corners are accumulators. If they are sharp and bare, they become stagnant. If they are cluttered, they become noisy. But if they are tended, softened with plants, lit with intention, or opened through design, they become places of growth. Look at your bedroom now in your mind. Are there corners that feel forgotten, that gather dust, that haven't seen movement in weeks, that house piles of unread books, tangled cords, or folded laundry that never quite makes it to the closet? These are not minor oversights. They are interruptions. Because energy follows attention, and where attention has collapsed, stagnation builds. One woman I once worked with kept getting sick. Not major illness, just low energy, poor sleep, aches that came and went. She had done everything, bought the right mattress, took supplements, used diffusers. Nothing helped, until one day she looked at the back corner of her bedroom, the one behind the nightstand, and realized it hadn't been touched in over a year. Dust, old wires, even a cracked bowl someone had given her out of pity. She cleared it, placed a small bowl of river stones, lit a candle beside it. Within days, her sleep deepened. Her body stopped bracing. We don't always need medicine. Sometimes we just need movement. It's also worth noting the energetic interaction between these three things: color, clutter, corners. You may think they are separate, but they speak to each other. A dark wall above a cluttered underbed beside a sharp, neglected corner, that's a triangle of heaviness. And your body every night is asked to rest in the center of it. That's not rest, that's quiet negotiation. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You don't need to repaint your whole room overnight or throw out everything you own. Instead, begin with one shift, one light bulb changed to a warm hue, one box removed from under the bed, one forgotten corner revisited and given new life. Maybe it's a plant, maybe a framed quote, maybe a soft lamp, maybe just light and air. Let your room become an ally. Let it tell you gently that you are safe enough to rest, that you are worthy of waking up energized. Because here is the deeper truth. Your bedroom is not a storage room. It's not a visual catalog of fatigue. It's a temple of breath, of restoration, of reconnection. And if you ever doubt whether such details matter, whether a dark wall or a dusty corner can truly shape your day, remember this. The space where you lay your head each night holds your final thoughts, your unresolved fears, your unspoken prayers. That space deserves clarity. Your room should not reflect how tired you are. It should restore how vibrant you were meant to be. 9. Story interlude. The elder monk and the south-facing window. There is a story passed down in some circles of monastics, not written in sutras, not carved into temple walls, but carried quietly in conversations, shared over tea, or whispered between footsteps on polished stone. It is the kind of story that doesn't instruct so much as it lingers, like smoke from incense long after the flame is gone. It tells of an elder monk well into his 70s who lived in a modest room at the eastern edge of a mountain monastery. His space was sparse, a wooden platform for sleep, a simple altar with a bowl, a candle, and an image of the Buddha, not ornate, not gilded, just present. The walls were bare, the floor swept daily with a hand broom. But there was one oddity. Each morning before breakfast, the monk would lift his woven mat, walk to a different corner of the room and place it in a new position on the floor. At first, the novices thought he was indecisive. Some whispered jokingly that he was chasing luck. Others assumed he was old and forgetful, unable to recall where he had sat the day before. It became a quiet curiosity, until one day a younger monk, emboldened by affection more than audacity, finally asked, "Master, why do you move your mat every morning?" The elder turned to him, smiled, not with surprise, but with the patience of someone who had been waiting for the question to arrive. Then he pointed to the thin beam of golden light that streamed through the south-facing window and landed gently on the mat. "I move," he said, "until I feel this, the sun. I want my spine to remember it exists." He didn't elaborate. He didn't explain Qi flow or photoreceptors or early morning absorption. He simply left the thought as it was, like a riddle that didn't require solving. And yet, in those few words, he delivered a masterclass in spatial awareness, in personal alignment, in the art of remembering what matters before the day begins. Let's sit with that for a moment. I want my spine to remember the sun exists. What does that mean, really? In Feng Shui, placement is often misinterpreted as rigidity. Place this here, never put that there, always face this direction. But true placement is not dogma. It is relationship. It is recognition of how you respond to your environment and how your environment responds to you. The elder monk wasn't bound by superstition. He didn't fear that misplacement would bring misfortune. He simply understood that the body, like the spirit, needs reminders. And he gave himself one each morning to sit where warmth touched him first. Not for comfort, but for clarity. In Western design language, this might be called lighting strategy. In spiritual terms, it might be called salutation. But neither captures what's essential. It's not about sunlight as a function. It's about sunlight as instruction. Think of your own space. Where do you sit in the morning? Is there a place where light arrives first? And do you allow yourself to meet it? Or do you remain in shadow, not out of preference, but out of habit? So many of us wake up and walk through the day on automatic, stepping over the same rugs, facing the same blank walls, turning our backs to the windows because the outlet is on the other side. But what if you shifted? Just slightly, just once. What if tomorrow you sat in the one place where light touched your shoulder before it touched the floor? Not for photography, not for perfection, but for permission. This is the hidden gift of intentional placement, not to correct your life, but to reconnect your senses. The monk knew this, and so each day, as his joints stiffened and his breath slowed, he moved, not to seek power, but to remain teachable, not to control energy, but to feel it. And isn't that the very heart of both Feng Shui and lived wisdom? To remember that life doesn't pour evenly across all spaces, but to know that we can reposition ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our practices, to meet it more clearly. Sometimes people say, but I don't have the perfect window, or my room is small, or my apartment faces north. But this story isn't about architecture. It's about attitude. If the sun doesn't reach your room, maybe it reaches the hallway, or the front steps, or a stretch of floor at 9:47 a.m. for exactly 5 minutes. The question is not, do I have the perfect space? It's, do I know where the light lives, and am I willing to turn toward it? In the Elder Monk's Act, there is no decoration, there is no ritual, there is only calibration. He adjusts himself to a moving world, and in doing so teaches us something profound. That placement is not where you drop your belongings. It is where you allow your strength to return, because energy doesn't always roar in. Sometimes it waits, quietly, on the southern wall, at the edge of a mat, until we remember it's there. If your spine has forgotten the sun, if your room, your bed, your mornings have been absorbed by habit or dimness, this is not a reprimand. It's a nudge to move, to feel, to reposition not just your furniture, but your attention. And so, as you listen now, ask gently, where does the first light fall in your space? And when did you last let your body feel it? Not because it fixes everything, but because sometimes the smallest act, placing your mat in sunlight, can be the beginning of 1,000 other realignments. Final, so now we arrive not at the end, but at the edge of a gentle question. When you step into your bedroom tonight, what will it whisper back to you? Will it greet you with breath, with warmth, with the quiet hush of support? Or will it reflect a kind of tiredness? One that has less to do with your body and more to do with your forgetting. Because in the rhythm of modern life, it's so easy to overlook the spaces that hold us. We measure health by routines and results, by supplements, steps, and strength. But true wellness, the kind that endures, is also measured by softness, by what cradles you when your effort ends, by the space that receives you when there is nothing left to perform. Your bedroom is not just where sleep happens, it's where you release, where your energy surrenders, where your dreams gather their tone and your breath resets the day. And so the air, the scent, the placement of your bed, all of it matters. Not because a textbook said so, but because your nervous system listens even when your mind does not. That is the essence of Feng Shui, not fortune-telling, not magical thinking, but spatial honesty. It's asking, without judgment, does this space match the version of myself I'm becoming? If it does, wonderful. Tend to it, deepen it. If it doesn't, beautiful. That awareness is already a form of healing. You don't need to renovate. You don't need to chase perfection. Perhaps you just need to let more light touch your spine in the morning, or to clear what no longer breathes beside you at night. Perhaps you simply need to return to the part of you that listens. So tonight, I invite you to pause before you sleep. Not to fix, but to feel. Look at your bedroom, not with critique, but with curiosity. What lives here now? What lingers in the corners? What belongs? What might be ready to go? And if this video offered something quietly useful, if it sparked a shift in the way you see your space, I invite you gently to help me continue this journey. Leave a comment below. Tell me about your bedroom, about a change you've made or one you're ready to make. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that their space is speaking too. And if you'd like to support more reflections like this, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to New Day Mindfulness. I'm quietly walking toward a small milestone, 1,000 subscribers, not for status, but so I can continue offering these calm, honest explorations that honor the home, the body, and the energy that flows between them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.